Hey, Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, of course, we're going to go over the little bit of a pumpiness in the chart and to just examine whether or not we have a good opportunity to capitalize on that. Of course, we also see that bullishness in the stocks, which do have a little bit of a mixed day, but overall fairly green. Just to make sure that we're moving right along, going to skip the usual commentary and just go ahead and show the structure that's on the screen, which is just just a lot of chop, guys. We're just chopping up and down in a little bit of a range. So price action wise, there's not that much to be talking about. If we do take a look at the local range that we are seeing on the chart here, you can see we're just moving essentially between 18,500 and 20,400 with a little bit of a mid-range around 19,500, right? And so that's a fairly significant number for us to beat, that 19,500, if we want any chance to just kind of pop up there to 20,400. Otherwise, there's still the risk that we could fall back down to 18,600-ish, right? And it really is just that simple. If we're on this side of the line, probably going to pop up here. If we're on this side of the line, probably going to retest the bottom at some point, right? Unless we break our range, right? So just turning that off, let's go ahead and take a look at our macro downtrend. Of course, this is the big boss that for the last 6 months or so has just been rejected, right? Are we going to get rejected again? It seems like that's the question that we're asking every other day, as this a huge swath of territory that we were able to play in underneath this wedge has just been contracting and contracting and contracting and contracting, and now there's no more space to contract. We gotta squeeze up to the upside or down to the downside. Either way, of course, this is going to compress our volatility. And so if we do a volatility check, you can see on the daily we are just screaming on our volatility. We are screaming, guys. Like there's, this thing wants to just pop off, okay? Usually when we reach these levels of low volatility, they tend to just pop off and expand in one direction or another. Unfortunately, volatility is direction neutral, and so we can't say which direction it will go. That's why we need to get clues through momentum and through price action, etc., etc. But guys, let's go ahead and jump to the 4 hour. This is the daily. Let's see what the 4 hour has for us. You can see that the 4 hour volatility is also steadily contracting. Let's go to the 2 day. You can see that the 2 day is even more contracted. This thing is absolutely on the floor, just wailing to explode. It wants to just pop off. Of course, I also mentioned we should be looking at the 4 day, and look at this. The 4 day is starting to cross over. We are starting to reach that maximal low type area. So the 4 day is also thinking about joining the party. And the 5 day does have a little bit more of a ways to go, but it is quite thinking about it as well. And so if this chart is waiting for the 5 day, maybe we could kind of chop around for a few more days as the 5 day loads up. And then, of course, we look at the weekly. It's just, yeah, we don't really know what's going on the weekly. So maybe for these higher time frames, let's go ahead to the monthly. Doesn't really give me anything. 3 month. Looks like nothing, right? I mean, this stuff just gets pretty abstract from there. So basically, we can say that from all the time frames all the way up to the 5 day, it is screaming for a big move to happen. And then once we get around to the weekly, it's just a little bit less clear if that's the definitive move for the entire macro market, because of course anything under a weekly, it may not really be the macro, bottom line. We may still have to wait for the weekly or maybe even a monthly or something to kind of play out, maybe a 2 week, something like that. And then once we get a screaming signal on the weekly or the 2 week, then maybe that could really signify something very, very important for the macro turnaround. But until then, the 5 day, could be to the downside very, very easily, right? And so here we are just wedged in. So we looked at price action. We looked at volatility. Let's go ahead and throw on our EMAs just to see what we have going on here. You can see, of course, that we do have the potential for a daily squeeze play to the upside. But as for the time being right now, both our EMAs do have a slight, a downward orientation to them. We do need to get the 21 to be flat and for the 9 to have a positive slope in order for us to be bullish on a EMA's perspective on the daily. Not quite there yet. Very easily could get rejected by the 9, and the 4 is right there as well. Slightly uptick on the 4, which is a good sign. It does mean it is squeezing between the 4 and the 9. That can lead into a bigger squeeze play with the 9 and the 21. It's just we're not there yet. So unfortunately, I can't give you a reading on the daily EMAs. On the 4 EMAs, of course, we do have that squeeze that I was projecting that would happen between the 4 and the 9, and then likely to lead in to the 21 on the 4 hour because of this, kind of bouncy area that we had right here. And, I can just show you that in a moment in the transparency section. But let's go ahead and just take a look at the weekly because, of course, the weekly, since the daily isn't quite sure, the weekly also isn't going to be sure. And, it's just very ugly. Here's the 4 EMA. We're underneath the 4 EMA. And when you're underneath the 4 EMA, you can easily just slop over, right? You can just easily slop over. And so if we want to have any type of security on these charts, we really do need to get above the 4 EMA, which would be at least at 19,400, preferably in the middle of, between the 4 and the 9 is where you can feel a little bit secure. That's going to be around that 19,700 level. So again, validating that 19,500, 19,600, right, area, which we did see both on our momentum plays analysis previously, as well as on this kind of a local range. Really, that 19,500 and above is what's going to give us security. And the EMAs are confirming that on the weekly, okay, guys? So just so there's no question about that, it really is critical that we get above, a 19,500, preferably above 19,600. I'm calling it 19,550 according to my measurements and calculations based upon momentum. Let's go ahead and look at that momentum for the uh, well, let's go ahead and look at the structure really quick. You do see that we have this area that we could play with below us if we do end up breaking down to 14,000. We also have this support based upon this little node that we have over here, as well as the top of the market. If I had put it down on the daily, then you can see that's somewhere around 18,600. And then we do have some type of momentum breakdowns around 18,800, as we've discussed in previous episodes. So I'm not going to go into that in detail. You can just trust me. If we get really close to this yellow line, we could threaten to break down lower. And of course, putting on the 4 hour here, you can see that these are the projections that I made for this market. And that does correspond to the little pop-up that we have there. So just for transparency, here's the previous episode. Let's go ahead and make sure that we can get some audio on this thing. There we go. Fall over and just die from there. So of course I'm not bullish unless we're over 19,550. Like, I don't think that this bullish trajectory is likely to work out. But I would suggest that, past results aren't necessarily a prediction of the future. And so if we do pump off of this kind of midline, you can see this dashed line here, right? If we pump off of that midline and break through that downtrend and get above that bullish bias, then I would suggest that we could potentially do something like this and maybe even pop up into this uber bullish area. And okay, guys, just going to pause it there. So you can see that I do have both for the bearish scenario and the bullish scenario. I do have the arrow pointed in a direction to the upside. So no matter which direction this market is headed, I did expect a bounce right here, right? I underlined it on the previous episode that I did expect a bounce up here, whereas everyone else was just panicking. Guys, don't panic, right? Like everyone was super panicking that we were dropping. I was saying, most likely we're going to come back down here, tag it, and then bounce up. And look what we did. Just boom, guys. Like Alpha Fam is just killing it. The Alpha Commission is just nailing these calls. We did, of course, tag the bottom here, freaked people out, and then boom, right? This line right here, this line right here is in development potentially. And of course, we do have to get above that macro downtrend in order for this to continue. And if we want it to hold, we have to get above that 19,550, guys. So just again, for truth in advertising, for transparency, to keep it real, I just wanted to show you that the calls that I'm making on this channel, right? The fact that I am drawing these things out in advance and I can prove it, I can show you the trajectory that I'm suggesting could happen with the validations, right? The condition was if we got support off of this midline. That's what I was saying in the video. Of course, I was the one to develop this midline and also to suggest that we could bounce off of it. Meaning that it was an original idea, then of course this was a valid call and the conditions were met, and boom, guys, like we are just hitting that area. Now, what's the significance of this? The significance is that now we're at that make or break area. By the end of today, we should see whether we can get above this or whether we're going to start breaking down, either end of today or perhaps into tomorrow, but that should choose the direction of this market. Okay, so guys, I really for bullishness need us to see us breaking through this thing now and holding above 19,000 550. And of course, if we get rejected, I don't think that we're just going to keep bouncing off of this thing forever, okay? Like, I would suggest that most likely we're going to puncture a hole in there and then start working our way down even lower, because that volatility that I showed you earlier in the episode is going to end up working its way out. And you can only contain, volatility like that for so long. Markets have to have some randomness in it. It just can't be a flat line going sideways, right? There has to be a burst of randomness. And so, guys, like, these are the thresholds that I'm setting for you, and it's very close in price action, but one will be to the downside and one will be to the upside. You get me? You feel me, Alpha Fam? Okay, good. So we're all in agreement with that. Then let's go ahead and put on the Alpha Momentum pools, updated, of course, for today. And you can see that we are sitting above today's momentum pool. So we're just chilling out, getting some sunlight, sitting by the side of the pool, right? Catching some of those rays, getting vitamin D. Everything's good in the hood. The daily momentum pool here is serving us quite well. And, if we fall back into this pool, just kind of range around a bit, no problem. Doesn't matter at all. The thing that we don't want to see is closing underneath the momentum pool. That would suggest that our momentum trajectory would be to the downside. And so, of course, above or in the pool, no problem. We're just at the resort, just chilling out. Our 2 to 5 day projection is incredibly tall this time. Previously, it was just very slender up here at 19,500. In fact, for the last couple days, it's just been like a straight line up at 19,550. But something weird is happening. So now our momentum for the 2 to 5 day projection gets all the way below us and then all the way above us up here. Now, I would say that on average, that puts pressure on us to the downside, but we also have a little bit of support, a little bit of wind at our back. So we have these headwinds and we have a little bit of support at our back also as we try to push forward. And so, really, it is an open question whether or not we are going to break through this area. Which again, guys, just to not to put too fine of a point on it, but we really need to get above 19,550 as soon as possible, guys. If you want to be bullish, we have a hard time limit coming up, guys. That volatility isn't going to wait for us, okay? Like, what is this? Let's go ahead and jump over to that volatility. Let's look at that on the daily, guys, okay? Look at that on the 2-day, okay? You think this volatility is going to wait around forever for us? Like we have a time limit. We have to get above 19,550, and I'm not kidding around, guys. Like this is no joke. These momentum pools are telling you the story. They're just screaming at you, and it's saying, well, okay, well, since we basically haven't been able to secure 19,550, yes, there's this broader range that you can play around in, and which is just going to be this area, and that's kind of the expectation of our momentum right now, is that we could go all the way to the bottom and then we could go all the way to the top. And but again, like, to be bullish, we do have to sit on top of this thing. In fact, this is my minimum standard for bullishness in the market, and I'm not going to budge on that. Okay, so just with all that volatility building up, I can't budge on this. Of course, we are bullish on the day, but how can I be bullish in this market unless we get over this critical area? Every single day has been telling us that's important. And of course, as we build up our momentum to the upside, this momentum pool, this a 2 to 5 day projection, will probably come down, and so that could just put more and more, strength at our back, as opposed to being a headwind against us. And so, guys, we probably need to update this in another day or two. But for now, as long as we're above the daily, we're pretty chill. Pretty chill. That's just my analysis of momentum, guys. If you want some signals, right, because I know that's what you guys really love, is let's go ahead and put on the macro downtrend just to get some context there. And then let's see, what else can I put on here? Let's go ahead and put on that local level just to get some context as well. Guys, yeah, so you can see that, yes, if we're above this daily momentum pool, yes, we're bullish. Technically, we're bullish above there, okay? But watch out, because we are at the limit of this macro downtrend. So I cannot, in good faith, tell anybody to be bullish as long as we're at the macro downtrend like level, guys. Like, that's where we get smacked down from. That's where we get rejected, just hard rejected. So I cannot tell anyone to be bullish above this level, because we're literally at resistance, and this negative play to the downside, right, could easily happen. So just watch out, okay? But we're not really bearish until we get under 19,180. Then I'm going to feel bearish. And of course, I'm going to feel very bearish under 18,977, basically 18,980. I'm going to be very bearish, probably going to reach the bottom of our range. Of course, I am going to be bullish above 19,550 for all sorts of technical reasons. The macro downtrend, our momentum lines, some of this area over here that we need to kind of flip, and then we do need to actually get above that and then hold it as support in order to bounce off of that. And then we're going to have an extra layer of resistance, this yellow line around 19,882. And so in combination with our higher time frame EMAs, I'm not going to be ultra bullish until we get to a 19,960-ish, which then would correspond with some possibility for some further continuation to the upside, which, if we do look at our kind of that range that we have going on, you can see that, in fact, that might be able to push us to the top of this range at 20,400. Could we just get rejected there and keep going sideways, or maybe just like come back and effectively break out of our downtrend, hit somewhere up here, and then like come back down, retest our downtrend, and then go on our way? Like, that could happen as well, guys. Like that's a very real possibility. So again, like being uber bullish, it's just saying that we could get up to here, and being bullish is just saying that we could get up to here. I don't know in this area, like this could be easily a fake out. And then, of course, if we're down here, most likely to the downside, most likely to the downside. So that's what I'm seeing in terms of my signals. And if you really want to be macro bullish, then again, being above that 20,400 is going to be your best bet. If you just want to kind of like chill out and wait to see what happens, then you can just see if we break this range, right? Like if we're breaking this range, to the upside, right? Then probably we're doing a good job, on the macro. If we break this range to the downside, right, then probably we're doing a terrible job and just going to go lower. And so, guys, like if you just want to be really conservative and wait for us to get out of this range, then you could play this or you could play this. You don't even have to bother with this chop, right? This chop has basically been good for traders playing off of resistance and support, right? And it's been really nothing but hell for everyone else. Guys, this episode is getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to go. One thing that I would just add is that the DXY is coming down. You can see this kind of fake out to the downside. It did just fake us out by coming all the way down to our uptrend here, right, where we do get a nice push up, push up, push up. We got a nice push up over here. Right, boom, right? Alpha Fam called that one, and then look, we're doing it again. And what I think this one is being caused by is today the Prime Minister of the UK did step down. Of course, she is responsible for putting in all sorts of terrible policies that have just pummeled the British pound, which of course is measured against the US dollar. And so that means that the US dollar pumps when the British pound does poorly, right? And of course, if the British pound does good, then the dollar is going to weaken a little bit, just like the yen or the euro. If they started doing stronger, then of course the dollar is also going to be forced down a little bit. And with that horrible prime minister just stepping down in shame after only 6 weeks in office, because she basically ruined the UK economy and just like totally in a blink of an eye wasted $20 billion, something like that. Just the market's getting pretty excited for the British pound that maybe, it can have a little bit more strength. And so we are seeing this pullback on the dollar. That's totally due to international affairs. It's not really something that says anything bad about the dollar in the long run. So you can just think of this as just kind of like starting over, and like now we can just see if it's for real or not. Maybe that's just the market's getting excited about the UK Prime Minister stepping down, so focus is off of the dollar, for a second, right? But unless we really break down below this line, I'm not going to get bullish on markets. It's kind of like the inverse of what Bitcoin's doing. And in fact, I believe if we flip this chart upside down, man, this looks like the Bitcoin chart, but like upside down, right? Like this is literally what Bitcoin's chart looks like, but upside down. Okay, so guys, like until the U.S. dollar breaks down from this line, then I'm not going to be super excited about these risky assets like Bitcoin. But until then, you understand the hopium, you understand our key levels to watch, and of course, both from a macro perspective as well as just from our daily levels here. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay, guys. So that was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.